Live from the KHOU11 studios, it's Great Day Houston. And now, here's your host, Deborah Duncan.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us on Great Day Houston. Now, ever since there have been human beings, the question has remained, is there life after death, and what's on the other side? The ancient Egyptians would bury loved ones with clothes and food just in case they needed them in the afterlife. It's also the topic of so many Hollywood scripts. Ironically, the movie What Dreams May Come, starring Robin Williams, dealt with suicide and the afterlife.
I still exist. I still exist.
Chris Annie's dead. She killed herself.
I'm her soulmate. I can find her.
As we know, Williams committed suicide on Monday. All of us eventually will go, but where we go is still a mystery. Or is it? Our first guest believes there is life on the other side and communicates with those who have passed over. He's here today to help some audience members reconnect and hopefully heal from the loss of a loved one. Please welcome the author of Never Letting Go, Mark Anthony, also known as the Psychic Lawyer. Good morning.
Thank you, Deborah.
We get so many emails of people asking, when's he coming back? But I also got to say that we got a couple of emails, and this happens all the time, we do something with psychics, of people who questioned whether this was a good Christian thing. In fact, they thought that this was a sign of evil. But you have an answer for that.
I do. Sadly, the Bible has been interpreted and misinterpreted in many ways, and it's been used to justify some absolutely horrific things, everything from slavery to treating women as property, to justify genocide. And I think what we have to do is realize that we're all unique and different, and that we all have gifts from God. And so what I do is I look also to the Bible for inspiration, because the Bible's full of people who have psychic and mediumistic gifts.
The prophets. Now it says
the prophets.
False prophets, but it does have prophets in it.
I mean, dream interpretation and foretelling the future. When Joseph interpreted Pharaoh's dreams about the plagues that were, or the 7 years of famine that were to fall upon Egypt, how the prophetess Deborah in the book of Judges helped using her abilities to help the General Barak, that's where our president gets his first name, to overcome the Canaanites. Even Jesus saying, you know, before the cock crows twice, you will have denied knowing me 3 times, let alone bringing forth the spirits of Moses and Elijah and the Transfiguration.
Yeah.
So when you look at the Bible, where we're depicted in a good light, we're prophets and prophetesses. Where we're depicted in a negative light is when we're referred to as witches or mediums. And I don't, mean to offend anyone's religion, because I'm a big proponent of religion.
In fact, you thought you were going to be a priest at one point.
I was being groomed to be a Catholic priest. And what I've found in my journeys throughout the world, I was in Japan, and I wrote about this in Never Letting Go. Japan's an interesting country because it's okay there and socially acceptable to be a member of more than one religion. You can be a Buddhist, a Shinto, and a Christian simultaneously. And I was at a Buddhist temple, and I discussed this with a monk, and what he said to me was very profound. He said, as many people as there are in the world is as many paths to God as there are in the world. And who are we to limit God? And then we discussed that religion is a very positive and a good thing, so long as
it's not abused.
It's not abused or used as a moral justification for anger, bigotry, hatred, or violence.
Yeah. And it's interesting, you talk about you can be more than one religion, but a lot of the religions, at its core, we share the same beliefs.
Absolutely. Every major religion has a golden rule. In Christianity, it's do unto others as you would have them do unto you. In Buddhism, it's do not do to someone what you would not have them do to you. And both Hinduism, Islam, Native American spirituality, Shintoism, and it all comes down to the laws of physics. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. You do good to others, you receive good. You do evil deeds, evil does come back. The Hindus refer to it as the law of karma.
Right.
And Christianity has that as well. I believe it's in the book of Galatians. Whatever a man shall sow, he shall reap. So whatever you do to others is going to come back to you.
And I'll just wrap up with one person in particular emailed me and said, I thought you were a Christian. Guess what? I am. And I just want to say my faith is not that easily threatened.
And it should not be. And I look to inspiration from the book of Romans, chapter 12, verses 6 through 8, which says we have different gifts according to the grace given to each of us. If your gift is prophesying, then prophesy in accordance with your faith. If it is in serving, then serve. If it is in teaching, then teach. If it is to encourage, then give encouragement. If it is giving, then give generously. If it is to lead, do it diligently. If it is to show mercy, do it cheerfully.
And that's what you see as your gift.
I do. In fact, the person who directed me to that particular quote was a fundamentalist Baptist minister who's a friend of mine that lives in Atlanta. And he said, you know, Mark, you have a service gift which must be used in the service of other people. And through you, healing, resolution, and understanding is coming to people. He said, it's not about you, it's about the people you help. And that's very, very important.
Yeah. All right, I want to talk about the suicide of Robin Williams. And what you're seeing out there online with people's comments is all kinds of things. Certainly people who have great compassion, empathy and sympathy.
Yes.
But you also have people saying that that's a sin in itself to commit suicide, and where does your soul go after then?
There's no one size fits all with suicide. And part of being a Christian or just a person of faith is not to sit in judgment and cast the first stone. What Robin Williams' very tragic ending shows all of us is that depression is a real disease. It plagues people. Suicide, my best friend committed suicide. And oddly enough, he looked just like Robin Williams. When we were in Japan together, people kept coming up and asking for his autograph. And I go, this is kind of weird because they think I'm Robin Williams. And it was really funny. But we're all the children of God. And how many people here are parents? A lot of people, right, in the audience? Could you ever condemn one of your children to an eternity of horror and suffering no matter what he or she did? I mean, there may be times we feel like we might, but certainly your love supersedes any of that.
Yeah.
God
I just got to think, if somebody is in that much pain.
And God's the most loving parent of all. God would never condemn anyone to an eternity of suffering. Particularly, I mean, Robin Williams was a genius. This is a very, very intelligent man. But when you're in that pit of depression, you are in a state where you feel that you're in a living hell from which there is no escape.
Yeah. Fame and fortune doesn't do it.
Fame and fortune, it no longer does it. A beautiful wife, loving children, that doesn't do it. Academy Awards, none of that does it. And the feeling is that you're in an inescapable reality, which is so horrifying and so tormenting that the only escape is to cease your consciousness. And that is, from what psychologists and from my own study, that's why people commit suicide. And so we cannot sit in judgment of Robin Williams.
Right. Or anyone else,
anyone
yes.
who takes that drastic step. And it is painful. Suicide's an insidious problem. It affects all of us.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to back up a little bit and talk about you in terms of being a psychic. You grew up in a psychic family, so
Yes.
it wasn't strange to you necessarily, but how did you kind of merge, especially as a kid, merge that with other kids? Or did you just think that all other kids were having the same thing, like, hey, I've got extra friends too? Or,
Well, they
who came
kept
to
me.
see you last night, Bobby? Right?
Well, they used to burn me with cigarettes and lock me in a closet. No, not at all, not at all. My childhood was great. And both of my parents had psychic and mediumistic ability. So around age 4, I started seeing my friends. And they were okay with that, but they told me, don't talk about it outside of the house because people won't understand. And when I started school around age 5, I saw that. So we kept it. And also realized that not everybody's mom was like my mom.
Yeah.
Mom saw spirits and she could predict future events. And, my parents, were just middle America. They did not do this professionally. They did not, Mom discussed it openly, and a lot of people thought we were weird. We were the weird family, but the cool family. So it was kind of...
Yeah. So your parents didn't do it professionally. You didn't start out doing it professionally.
No.
You became a lawyer.
Yes.
And you found a way to kind of bridge that gap, which, by the way, I know you all are like, let's get to the readings. We'll get to those in a minute. But you found a way to kind of bridge both of those things together.
I did, because both being an attorney and a psychic medium revolves upon evidence. As a lawyer, I have to have evidence to prove my case in court, to substantiate my position. As a medium, what I do is spirits will validate who they are through many ways, and they're going to project pieces of evidence. It could be visual images. I may feel how the person died. I may get shared memories between the client and that person. I mean, there's a whole plethora of images, sensations, sounds, words that I may get to validate that it's them.
Okay. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to have you explain how that works, and you'll talk to the folks in our audience, which I see about 60 people here. You probably see about 1 million. But before we go to break, today on Facebook, we want to know, have you ever had an encounter, a vision, or dream that you feel came from the other side? You feel like there's just no other way to explain it. Log on and share your thoughts, and we'll share some of them at the end of the show. We'll be right back. We're back with the psychic lawyer, Mark Anthony. And before the break, I was asking you how this works. So explain to us how it works and what the communication will be between you, our audience members, and the spirits.
Well, can I stand up?
Sure.
A lot of people ask me, how does spirit communication work? And I say that, well, it's a transfer of frequency, a transfer of energy from a spirit who is pure consciousness to those of us who are in the material world. And they say, well, that sounds ridiculous. And I ask all of you, have you ever thought what happens when you make a cell phone call? So let's say that you want to talk to your Aunt Martha who lives in London, England. And how does that all work? Well, your brain sends an electrical impulse to your lungs. So the electrical energy then is turned into muscular energy, which compresses air, which flows up through your throat, making your vocal cords vibrate. So now we have sound wave energy, which is coming out and hitting the metal plate in the speaker on your cell phone, which vibrates, taking that mechanical energy, turning into electrical energy, which then turns it into radio wave energy, which then beams it to a tower. Now the tower takes that radio wave energy, turns it into electrical energy, runs it through several miles of wires into a giant antenna, then turning it into radio waves, which bounces off a system of satellites in orbit of the planet Earth, and somehow or other it finds the right satellite, which then takes that radio wave energy, beams it down to a huge antenna somewhere near London, converting that radio wave energy into electrical energy, which then goes through miles of copper, aluminum wire until it goes to a radio tower, once again getting converted into radio waves, which hits another tower and then is beamed to Aunt Martha's cell phone, causing the speaker in her earpiece to vibrate. So now we have mechanical energy creating sound wave energy, which hits her eardrum. Her eardrum begins to vibrate. That sound wave energy turns to mechanical energy as her stapes bones hits the 8th cranial nerve, taking mechanical energy, turning into electrical impulse, which goes into her brain and turns into, "Hi, Aunt Martha."
In all of 10 seconds. Yeah. In all of 10 seconds.
And you get annoyed when the call drops out. Oh, I can't believe this dropped out.
If you had asked me a few years ago, do you believe in ghosts or do you believe in cell phones, I would have said ghost for sure. Ghost.
I mean, think about it. 150 years ago, radio waves were simply a theory. 50 years later, Marconi was transmitting radio waves from Italy to New York and back. So just because there isn't a test, or we can't take something and put it in a petri dish or under a microscope or subject it to some type of test that has not been created yet, doesn't mean something doesn't exist. I mean, human history is full of theories which later became fact.
The world's not flat, people.
No, the world's not flat. I mean, we pick up cell phones all the time, and you never really think what goes into it. But that in and of itself is miraculous technology. I mean, if you went back in time 400 years with a cell phone, a box that spoke.
You'd be arrested.
Arrested and burned at the stake. I mean, you'd be the entertainment that Friday night. It's burning. And a lot of psychics and mediums, we have been subjected to horrible prejudice and persecution over the years. Did you know, when we're on television right now, do you know there's a patron saint of television?
Is there really?
There is. Saint Clare of Assisi. Interesting. Saint Francis of Assisi, she was one of his followers 800 years ago. Well, what happened was she was a very devout and pious nun, and she got so ill she could no longer attend church services, so she prayed to God that she could see what was happening in church in real time. She began to see visions. 800 years later, Pope Pius XII, in 1958, declares her the patron saint of television.
There you go. I need a medal. I need one of those little medals, right?
Now we know she was what's known as a remote viewer. And a remote viewer is it's a psychic ability where you're able to take your consciousness and transfer it to observe things happening in real time.
Wow.
People say bunk, except for the fact that the CIA, KGB, British MI5, French Secret Service, the Chinese, North Korean, and the Australian and Japanese have been using remote viewers for over 50 years. And let's face it, 800 years ago, if you joined the clergy and received visions of the Holy Spirit, you became a saint. But if you were like Joan of Arc, who heard spiritual voices, which helped her to defeat France to defeat the English, you got burned at the stake for being a witch. So we've been subject to a lot. No, hopefully not.
So
put that lighter down.
What are you seeing? What are you feeling? And how does it come to you?
I see things, I hear things, and I feel things. I could be drawn to certain people. I can be, a spirit can come to me and start giving me pieces of evidence. There's all different ways. Okay. So.
Have at it.
All right. I'm getting a male energy coming through. And actually, he's darker complected, so he may be olive complected. He could even be African American. And what I'm getting is this intense feeling in my head, which is indicating that he had a very quick and unexpected passing. Prior to that, there was like a lot of nervous energy and tremor, so he was in a very excited state. This does not feel like this was, like I said, a quick and abrupt passing. Does that make sense with anybody? Yes, over here? Okay. I'm feeling issues here in the throat and in the head, and prior to passing, I'm getting a dizzy sensation, which indicates to me there was a disruption in his mental clarity. That could be due either to a mental state or possibly the introduction of any drugs or alcohol. Does that make sense to you?
No.
All right, I'm going to ask you guys to stand, if you could.
He was murdered.
I'm sorry?
He was murdered.
Okay, so he was in an agitated state.
Yes.
All right, what was the wound to the head?
A bullet.
A bullet, okay. Because that's, yeah, all right, so I'm getting nervousness, agitation. Wow. He says his luck ran out. He says he was really pushing the envelope. And as cliche as it may sound, a lot of people bring messages like this, but this he's really adamant about. He's talking about he really wants you to forgive him, because he says he did a lot of things to you at your expense and was kind of exploited your generosity and your kindness. Does this make sense to you?
A little.
You need to talk to the microphone,
a little bit,
please.
Yeah.
Okay, is that a yes?
Yes.
Okay, and I know this is very difficult. Something about your car. Is there something going on with your car? What's going on with your car? Let's talk about your car.
I'm having so many issues with my car. It's not working.
Okay.
So I'm using our mom's car right now.
The reason a spirit brings things like that up, number one, when I get a message, this is how they work with me. When he gives you a message about he's sorry for being exploitative and taking advantage of your generosity and kindness, that's the message. And when a spirit follows that up with an objective fact, car, issues with your car, you're having a lot of problems. Number one, that's how the Spirit lets me know that we properly received and interpreted the message. And number two, this is how he's letting you know about what's going on with your life. What's the deal with cats? Cats, love them, hate them, issue with cats?
He just got a cat.
Yeah,
He did.
I'm a dog person, but I just got a cat.
You don't like
this-
cats?
Well, I fell in love with this one.
Yeah, he's a
I'm
dog
sorry, I
person.
can't
I don't know
hear
if
you.
you heard that. Yeah, he's a dog person, but he just got a cat and fell
You
in love with
just
it.
got a cat.
Yeah, I just got a cat. Yeah.
Okay, case in point, he's letting us know what's going on with you. Hold on, and this also means he wants to talk to you. Something he's drawing my attention to the month of September. September is significant to you in any way. Could be births, deaths, anniversaries, events. Any three of you, September.
September? September? Nah, I don't have anything.
All right, that's
on
one of those things
September.
you need to think about afterwards, because what happens is when I start tasting and smelling apples, apples bring me into the month of September. Okay, so
Okay.
I'm getting a real strong connection with September and a passing in September. Does that make sense to anybody else?
Could it be October?
I'm sorry?
Could it be October?
No, this
'Cause
is
you said
September.
apples.
Any September folks? So you have.
Okay,
Okay,
there's an
hold
anniversary in
on.
September. We're going to take a break. We're going to take a break.
And what?
I'm a September baby.
Okay.
Oh,
All
there's
right,
a
we'll take a
September
break.
break. Then we're going to take a break.
All right.
When we come back, Mark Anthony will have some more readings.
What? Okay.
You can hear me? Can you hear me? Sam Wheat. Say my name. Say it. Leave me alone. Say my name. Sam Wheat. Say it.
Hello? I get a message from Sam. What? Sam Wheat? He asked me to call. Once you go to police, he said it was a setup. He was murdered.
She said Sam knew who killed him.
Are you out of your mind? I mean, what are you going to tell the police?
She knew things, private things.
I know about the green underwear that you wrote your name on.
Well, this psychic woman's got a record that goes back a long way.
Don't you see I'm not a fake?
And that is a scene from the movie Ghost. We're back with the psychic lawyer, Mark Anthony. Before the break, you got the sense of apples. And you were
Apples.
asking these folks over here, what's the connection with apples? And you said the connection with apples is?
We were bobbing for apples in Halloween. That's in his birthday's in October. And when you said about his throat, when the last breath he took was a big, like, that kind of thing. And in my sleep, sometimes I feel like I'm him and I'm doing the same exact thing that you just said.
Super.
So,
and first off, I want to thank you for making the connection. What happens a lot of times in readings, things are not immediately apparent. You have to have some time of reflection. And I receive certain images, and generally an apple means to me the month of September, but it could also be just the apple itself. That's a term that I refer to as a multiple meaning message because it has levels of significance on more than one occasion. So here what we have, apples are significant for bobbing for apples. Number two, he did it at Halloween, which is, I guess, that's the only time, I mean, I've never heard of bobbing for apples in July. And third, when I said something about his throat, and you said that you have dreams where you wake up with that sensation.
It's like when he was dying, I could feel that.
What is fascinating about that is you're having mediumistic contact with him because it's very normal and natural. How many people here have had a dream where a deceased loved one has come and communicated with them in a dream state? See, it's a very typical phenomenon. We tend to believe that more than, hey, some lawyer standing up here, talking to a deceased loved one. The fact is, when you're feeling that sensation, that's very similar to what I go through when a spirit communicates with me. So that's actually a very positive experience. Let's see what he's got for you. Now he's pulling me into the month of February. Does February have significance for you?
No, not February.
Oh, here we go again. Okay, the reason I get February is I get a big red Valentine heart, which also means I love you. And so that's something that's very important, obviously, that he loves you. Your respect was something he always strove for and tried to obtain. And he really appreciates all the praying that you do for him.
Yes.
Okay, so they can hear our prayers. We must not pray to spirits. We pray to God. We pray to God to help them and more importantly, to help ourselves cope with loss.
Right.
So may God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Andy, the name Andy. Does Andy make sense with anyone? Andy, Andrew. Picking up Andy, Andrew. Yes? Okay. I'm going to ask you to stand, if that's okay. All right. What I'm getting with Andy is I'm feeling this sensation in my chest and in my lungs, and it feels like there's a full sensation, also a burning sensation. And what I'm feeling with Andy is this was not a quick and unexpected passing like the other spirit is communicating with. His passing took some time. And I feel a lot of health issues, a lot of draining sensation. When I get the draining sensation, that indicates to me that his life force was going a step at a time. Also, I'm feeling my legs cold and numb. It's almost as if he couldn't barely stand prior to passing. Does this make sense to you?
Yes.
Okay.
It does.
All right. And he showed me a ring on the ring finger. This is very fascinating because this has a very antiqued look, and one large diamond with two smaller stones on it. Okay, so he's referencing a very antique-looking ring.
I'm going to stop you for a second,
Yes.
only because this is interesting. I think we have 3 people that all of this is making sense to. So was the ring making sense to you, ma'am? Okay. Is it
Not
making sense
so
to
much.
you? Okay, hold on
Not-
one second.
It's making
so
sense
much.
to you?
Grab
Okay.
the microphone.
And
Bring
was
it
there a
right on
long,
over
slow
here.
passing? Yeah. Okay. We get frequency overlap. Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
All right, the ring's making sense. In what way?
His wedding ring was like that. It had
Oh.
a large diamond with 2 on the side.
Okay, so, and see what happens is, even though Andy made sense with you, spirits will continue to give us facts and evidence until they get, till we identify the right person. Okay, I get kind of a sarcastic, fun-loving sense of humor out of him. Okay,
Yes.
He likes some politically incorrect jokes, is how he's putting it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right, and this is so corny, but I'm hearing that '70s song, "You Light Up My Life." Does that make sense to you in any way?
Yes.
How so?
Well, he would sing songs like that to me that about loving me and kind of out of unusual songs like that. Yeah.
And the funny thing is, he wasn't like, he was serious in here, but the way he did it, it was almost comical.
Yes,
Is the
it was
way that
very
he would present that to you. And now I'm hearing something about a birthday. Now, when I hear this birthday song, this indicates a significant birthday, anniversary, or event, 3 weeks either side of today. So it could be within 3 weeks ago or within 3 weeks from now. Does this make sense to you?
His grandson's birthday.
Okay. His grandson, and I know this can be said of a lot of kids, but like the energy is like so over the top, just a lot of energy with this boy.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's 3.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. But
Very
what I
active.
get about this child is he can be like all over the place, and he'll stop and focus on something and be incredibly detail oriented. All right. And he's also does he talk to him? Are you hearing, you need to be watching this boy, because I think you're going to start hearing, I'm seeing Grandpa, even though he may not have a very accurate recollection of him. That's why he's zeroing in on his grandson. All right. Now, he showed me lots of images of lizards and geckos and things like that. Do those things make sense to you in any way?
Well, I took my grandson to the zoo last week, and there was this huge gecko there, and my grandson kept going back to it, wanting to see it.
Exactly. And so that is your husband letting you know that he's around and was with you at that time. That's why he's giving me those images. And he says that you're doing a really good job, although you don't think you are. He says, what was that song? And I'm hearing that, Now I'm Falling Apart. What was that? Turn Around, Bright Eyes. Remember that goofy 80s song? You can sing it better than I can. He's bringing that up, and he says, even though you feel like you're falling apart, you aren't. He said you're actually holding things together much, much better than you think. So what's something about, it's a very heavy bag, almost feels like a bowling ball in it. Something about a bowling ball, does this make sense?
Well, we were on a bowling league for about 10 years.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so, uncontestable fact following the message. So what he's saying to you is, yes, you feel like you're falling apart, but you're actually rebuilding and putting your life back together. There's another level of significance to that meaning. That bowling ball is a metaphor for you are holding on and grasping your pain to the extent that it is now becoming your life. And he's encouraging you to let go of the pain. Not let go of your love for him, but to let go of that pain. He said, because what's happening is you're turning other family members, their lives into your life instead of focusing on what you're doing. And by letting go of that agony, you will progress and move forward in your grief. Wait, there's one more thing. Don't be such a clean freak. What's up with that?
I don't know, because when we were married, I was a very clean freak, but
But
not so much now.
All right.
I've tried to get down to the cleaning, though, here the last few days.
right. So what that's an indication of is you were, very much into making everything clean. You've sort of lapsed on that, but now you're thinking you need to get back into that, which
Yes.
is what you just said. So
Mark,
that's an
look at me.
acknowledgement.
Mark, look
That's
at me.
good.
What am I thinking right now?
We're coming up on a station break.
Yes, yes, we are. But thank you very much, and we'll be right back.
It's very similar, actually.
Yeah. All right, so before the break, you were talking about that song, and we started going through the lyrics. Is once upon a time I was falling apart. No, falling in love, now I'm only falling apart. So that whole thing you were saying, he wants you to focus on your life and not so much grieve anymore, but continue to live.
And and that's a great. Thank you, Deborah, for. Does she sing great? Is she awesome? And that's a very important message for you. And I get a lot of songs because songs have so much significance for us.
Yeah,
so,
they do. All right, what else are you getting?
Okay. All right, now there's a female energy coming through. This is an older woman, and what I'm getting with her is I'm feeling, all right, hunched over, so I'm getting the osteoporosis, I'm getting the arthritis, I'm getting a diminishing of mental capacity, but boy, she was really putting up a fight on this. And what I'm getting is August. There's some connection with her in the month of August. Does this make sense with anyone? Does that make sense with you? Okay. It was funny because I look up and you're the one I'm drawn to. So.
My mother-in-law passed away at the beginning of the month.
I'm sorry.
My mother-in-law passed away August 5th.
Okay.
Or 4th.
And was she getting feeble and I'm getting a lot of pain in the back, like a lot of orthopedic injuries?
She had cancers that were coming out of her body. I mean, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, they were her back and her.
Was she, and this could be said of a lot of women, but with chocolate. Does chocolate make sense?
She liked sweets.
She liked
yes.
sweets.
Yeah, she loved to bake.
Okay. All right, so we're getting the pain, we're getting the chocolate. Boy, was she a stickler for detail, is what I'm getting about her. She was a very precise person. What she wants you to know is you measured up. She never wanted you to feel that you were not good enough for her son. You measured up. In fact, she thought of you as a daughter as opposed to a daughter-in-law. And it's extremely important that you know that. She's also talked about your heart and your heart health. Now, I don't diagnose or prescribe, and that doesn't mean you're going to get a heart attack or anything like that. But there's something going on with your heart and your blood flow that you need to get on top of.
I have really high cholesterol.
Oh. Totally busted from the other side.
Thanks, Kay. Love you.
Well, the reason they bring these things up, once again, it's an acknowledgement that spirits are aware of what's going on with us. Secondly, not only does she love you, she wants you to stay in good heart health. All right? Now, I'm feeling some type of injury or problem with my left finger's left hand. I'm being drawn to my left hand. Does this make sense to you in any way?
Oh, God.
It could be related to you, related to her.
My husband gave me her ring a few months after she passed, and I lost it when I was at the cemetery visiting her.
Okay, hold on.
She took it back.
It's like, return to sender.
That's what I've heard.
Oh, wait, Elvis died today.
Address unknown, right?
All right, I am not channeling Elvis. Don't worry about it. And she says, don't worry about it. And she showed me, for some reason, the Universal Studios logo. Does that make sense to you in any way?
We took my son to Universal when he was 5.
Uncontestable fact, following the message where she doesn't want you to worry about it. It's just a ring. You meant more to her than a ring ever could, and she means more to you than a ring ever could. It's don't worry about it. Now she's talking about emeralds. Emeralds. Does emeralds make sense to you? Emeralds are also, I think, the birthstone for May.
That's my birthday is in May.
Your birthday's in May, okay? So once again, she's acknowledging a fact about you. Now let's see if she has another message. Interesting, I'm getting that. A very merry on birthday to you. Oh, to you. All right, that's an interesting song. That's now that's from Disney's Alice in Wonderland. So that could also indicate to me birthday, anniversary, significant event 3 weeks ago or 3 weeks from now. Does this make sense to you?
Her death anniversary was at the beginning of the month, and my wedding anniversary is in a few days.
There you go. So that's what she's acknowledging on both those levels. Also, is there a name like Lisa or Alicia or Alice that makes sense to you? She'd give me a female L name.
Not that I can think of.
I want you to think about that when we come back from a break. I'm getting an impression that we're coming up on a commercial break.
You read my mind. We'll be right back. Psychic lawyer Mark Anthony, and I regret that we have to have those commercial breaks, but we have to pay the bills. So anyway, we were talking about a couple of things that were coming through here.
Right, and with the last person that I was reading, I was getting Alice or Alicia, and so what happens is everything I do involves frequency, and your mother-in-law came through, gave the messages she needed for you, and then when we went to commercial break, 2 folks over here said Alice or Alicia, okay? Now, is that either one of your names? And that's your name? Okay, hold on.
Oh my gosh. Stand up.
This is a male energy coming through.
Oh my gosh.
And what I'm getting with him, I'm getting a lot of pain and pressure in my head. And what this could indicate, there could be like a stroke or an aneurysm, something going on, because I'm also sensing like blood in my sinuses. Now, that doesn't mean that he was necessarily bleeding, but I'm also getting a breathing issue, which feels like there could have been intubation. Does this make sense to you?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. He should have listened to you. You're always going on about his weight and what he was eating, but he wasn't listening. That's what he wants you to know. Was he kind of a junk food junkie? Because I keep seeing bags like hamburgers and fries and things like that.
More like drinking.
More like drinking. Well, what I'm getting to is not only the drinking, but there was some that you weren't necessarily aware of, and I don't know if we can verify that, but he wants you to know that he wasn't listening to you, and he wishes that he would. Now, he's presenting me with the image of a 4-leaf clover, and a 4-leaf clover has meanings in this context in several. It could be the month of March. It could also mean the color green and or the number 17. Doesn't have to be St. Patrick's Day, okay? But I'm getting green or someone connected through Irish heritage. Does any of this make sense to you?
No, green is just Army. He was in the Army.
He was in the Army. What about the month of March?
March?
March.
Our daughter's birthday is in March.
Daughter's birthday is in March. Okay. Does she somehow feel she has some responsibility in his death? There's this lingering guilt that she seems to have that he wants her to acknowledge it wasn't her fault, that she has no responsibility for this.
No.
I want you to think about that. Plus, on Facebook and on my website, I wrote a blog called Empowerment Through Being Powerless. And what this means is, in particular emphasis with your daughter, is you have to tell yourself, I am powerless over the fact that my father died. I am powerless to change the past. What he's acknowledging is that she's going through a lot of guilt, a lot of negative feelings, understandably so, with the death of her father, and he wants her to be free of that. He said, with you, it's a little bit different. He said, because no matter how much I tell you to be free of it, you're not going to. All right? And he's acknowledging a lot of white birds and seagulls, which indicates some connection with the ocean and the coast. Does this make sense? In what way?
Well, I just got back from Florida. I was in the beach. But in the cemetery, at the veteran cemetery, when I leave, there's a little pond out there. And there was one time that I could really feel his presence. And there was like doves or birds, white birds on this pond at the veteran cemetery as you leave.
And see, he's bringing that up to let you know that he was with you and that he's also concerned about what you're going through. Something about, this could be a connection with Arizona, but he's talking about cactuses. Is there something about cactus plants? All right, that's one of those things I want you to think about. What about Arizona, New Mexico? He's talking about that.
My daughter lived in New Mexico.
So that would be then a yes.
Yes.
And the thing is, spirit communication, sometimes we got to think about the associations because they don't speak in a human language. They send vibrational frequency, which, like Aunt Martha's cell phone call, we have to put into logical, recognizable concepts. So thank you, and may God bless you.
All right. We'll be right back. We are back with the psychic lawyer, Mark Anthony, which, by the way, is in town for an event. We'll tell you about that in just a little bit, but now back to what you do.
Okay. All right, from what I understand, with the L, lucky, or when we're focusing on you, and the four-leaf clover is a symbol of luck, your mother-in-law, who was communicating, her husband's name was Lucky?
His name was Lucky,
Was
yes.
Lucky, okay. So what happens, and we were discussing this on the break, is that spirits, oftentimes their frequencies overlap. It's like when you're driving down the road and you want to listen to your favorite radio station, all of a sudden another radio station starts overlapping. This is all about frequency transfer. This isn't magic or hocus pocus. This is based on frequency. And so that's what's happening here. All right, now there's a younger female coming through, and what I'm getting with her is a very quick passing, and I'm feeling like, it almost feels like my lungs are exploding, and this was abrupt, this was quick, and I feel a collapsing sensation. Does this make sense with anyone? Over here? All right, hold on. Was she like a real girly girl? Okay. I'm getting like this whole girly girl, real feminine. She wants you to know that with her passing, and please forgive me, she was very much afraid, but it wasn't very long. It was over pretty quick, and that she's very much at peace. She's talking about toast and bread and carbohydrates. Did she sort of avoid that sort of thing?
I don't know.
I can't, you need to hold
yeah,
my...
no, I don't know that.
All right, toast, bread, carbohydrates. She was like, does that make sense with somebody else? Somebody who was really, really very picky about what she ate.
She was watching what she ate.
So that would then be a...
Yes.
All right, now, tomatoes. Do tomatoes make sense to you in any shape, form, or fashion? Love them, hate them? Did she love them, hate them? Tomatoes.
I do. I don't recall if she did.
You do what?
I love tomatoes.
Okay, so that answer then would be a...
Yes.
What's happening is spirits are presenting pieces of evidence. Okay, she was watching what she ate. You have an issue with the tomatoes. All right, now let's get a message from her. Well, she have some connection with mountains. She showed me lots of mountains, higher altitudes, mountains, thinner air. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, well, she lived up by the White Mountains up in New Hampshire.
So the answer would be?
Yes. Yes.
And you're a great sport. I appreciate that. All right, let's get a message. You keep writing something over and over, something about writing. There's this note, there's this significant writing. Does this make sense to you?
Yes.
She wants to acknowledge this. And in some ways it breaks your heart, yet in other ways it's very healing for you. So you don't have to stop. You don't have to take this writing or do anything to it. You need to hold it, treasure it in your heart. Interesting, she's showing me this little pink heart. Okay, go ahead.
Well, my sister-in-law, Audrey, passed away of lung cancer. And when I went to fly to bring her back, she was away. And walking on the beach sand, I picked up a little heart from the sand. It was made from the sand, a rock.
There you go.
A gift from heaven.
We'll
God
be right
bless
back.
you.
Wow. And here it is right here. This is the heart that Mark talked about that Sandra found on the beach. That is a heart-shaped rock. You can catch Mark at Body, Mind, and Soul tonight and tomorrow. He will be discussing near-death experiences and how connecting with the loved one in spirit can be an important therapeutic step in the healing process. For more information on Mark Anthony, the psychic lawyer, you can visit greatdayhouston.com. And again, his book is called Never Letting Go. All right, thank you all so very much for joining us today. So what did you think? Awesome. Yeah. And how does it make you feel? Much better?
Much, much better.
All right.
Much better.
That's what I call a great day. Thanks for joining us, everybody.